Have you ever wondered why so many clinicians reach their goal and then quietly start looking for something else? Today, you'll meet an emergency medicine physician who did everything you're being taught to do: residency, boards, years in the ER, even got licensed in 50 states, and still realized his greatest impact wasn't where he was trained to stand. If you're pre-med, pre-PA, or early in your career, you've been told to focus on getting in. So you build the resume, you collect the hours, you follow the path exactly as it's been laid out. But no one is teaching you how medicine is changing, or how to recognize when it's time to stop following and start thinking differently. In this episode, we're going to unpack what separates clinicians who build sustainable careers from those who slowly disconnect from the work they fought so hard to do. This is Shadow Me Next with Johnny Gilpin. Dr. Seitz, thank you so much for joining us on Shadow Me Next today. You are incredibly accomplished, and the gift that you have given clinicians is phenomenal, and I cannot wait to talk about it. So thanks for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So you worked as an emergency medicine physician. Are you still working actively in the ER, or have you totally transitioned?
So I'm still board certified. I'm actually having to re-up my board. It's been my
Ooh.
I'm one of the old guard that has that every 10 years. I think they changed it every 5 now. So I'm currently board certified. I in the last year or so have not worked any shifts. I fully being a CEO, and that's been taking up a lot of my time. But I licensed in all 50 states, so I did a lot of travel locums medicine. So I will probably pop into ERs again here in the near future. But right now, a little too busy.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about keeping your board certification, right? And the fact that you're licensed in all 50 states, I'm really excited to ask you about that as well. But
Sure.
you can go back to it, right? You have
Mhm.
established this incredible business for people. And you are the amount of patients that you are helping has probably just exponentially exploded because now you're helping clinicians, right? Help those patients. So your tree is so many more branches to that with
Yeah.
patient
Well,
care.
and that's part. I mean, I guess I say I haven't. I say I don't practice medicine right now, and at the same time, I mean, every day I'm learning with the clinicians that we support. You know what I mean? We're getting asked
Yes.
questions about protocols or questions about. I actually went back and got functional medicine trained because a lot of our
Really?
clientele
Yes.
are functional medicine practitioners. So yeah, I'm always, especially when you're doing medical oversight, medical direction work, which
Mm.
is what we do. Yeah, you're always still, you may not be seeing the patient directly, but when you're supporting all the clinicians that do, I'm still answering those questions, still having to look stuff up, still having to read and watch the YouTube videos again and all that good stuff. So
Heavily involved in patient care. Absolutely.
yeah,
Just a
yeah.
little bit different. So think back to your emergency medicine days. Tell us about something about emergency medicine that maybe people don't understand.
I've had this obviously interesting path,
Mhm.
which has been very exciting, and it's not done. And I like not knowing what's come next.
Mm.
Um, One of the things I think for me specifically, a unique perspective I have is the fact that I did practice very traditional, the most traditional medicine there is, which I would argue is emergency medicine, and then now and have trained in like the functional medicine wellness side of things.
Mhm.
And I think what people think those are completely different things. That there's traditional medicine and then there's new functional wellness, personalized care, and they are not the same. And if you're on TikTok or Instagram, that the traditional way is bad and the new way is good.
Right.
And I just have such a different, unique perspective. As I was learning about functional medicine myself and wellness and preventative care, I went into it thinking this is going to be completely different than what I learned.
Mhm.
And what I actually instead realized is that I had probably been practicing emergency medicine with a functional medicine mindset the whole time. Because that's really
Mhm.
what it is. It's a mindset. But the medicine is the medicine. How you approach that medicine really dictates what quote unquote type of medicine you're actually practicing. So you think emergency medicine, you think algorithms, you think, you're watching the show The Pit, which actually is a great show. If people have never
Great
seen it, it's
show.
great. Very exciting. Gave me a little PTSD. I thought I was working a shift the first episode, but that's okay. Um, but like, like you look at it, it's very algorithm driven, protocol driven, like you know what to do next, or you're trying to troubleshoot. But how you show up in that as the healer, as the clinician, really is either that functional medicine personalized approach or it's not, whether you're using an algorithm or not. Even functional medicine, if you look at it, I mean, there are algorithms that you can follow. So I think that there is this misconception that the two are separate. There's there's algorithm-based, research-driven medicine, and then there's this personalized, explorative, like science being a pioneer. And it's always the same. We've always said science and art of medicine. I always talk about those two things. Like that
Hmm.
is what we're talking about. Those are the different things, right?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic misconception, actually. And it brings me to another question, and that is, well, I guess a statement. So there is a role for functional medicine in the ED then, because in my brain, I'm thinking of the ER, like someplace you go acutely for emergency room, emergent problems, not your toenail that's, hurting you or the
Right, right, right.
sniffles. Yeah, ideally, it's these acute issues, but you've seen discussions and focus on functional medicine really improving even those patients in those acute settings too, then.
Yeah, and even the toenails, I'll say, excuse me. Even the toenail patients, even the patient. I mean, the emergency department has become very much everyone's entryway to medicine in general, for
Right.
better or for worse, right? What it's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be. I always said, like, man, emergency medicine would be really cool if you only ever saw emergencies, but that's just not the case, right? 90% of what I would see in a day was, but as a part of, and this is where I think the functional medicine piece comes in, is that what that all boils down to is education.
Mm-hmm.
It's what drew me to medicine. I'm a lifelong learner myself. I love to educate. But before you can educate, you have to learn it yourself. So, medicine is about coming alongside people and educating them, whether it's about their body or about their own misconceptions about what's going on. And the emergency department, I mean, I'd have three, four, five patients an hour where I'd have an opportunity to educate them or
Yes.
guide them in something. And we used to tell our residents when I was an attending, think about if you were on the street today, does that person look normal or healthy? Because what happens when you're in the ER all day, you're like, that guy looks
Mm.
fine. But if you saw that guy in
Mm.
the street, you'd be like, oh, whoa, that's not a normal looking person, right? You kind of had to learn to remember what normal people, because you switch the switch, right? You turn on, you put on your scrubs, you put on your ER badge, and all of a sudden you're that clinician. People look different to you because you're looking through the new lens. So you had to continuously practice this. Hey, if I saw this person in my living room or they walked through my door, like, would I say that looks normal? But I feel like this person is healthy or not healthy. And maybe it's not an acute emergency, but I'm the entryway. I'm the person they're coming to help figure this out. So here's my opportunity to educate, to give a little knowledge, to give some resources, to point them in the right direction. And again, I'll go back to like that's functional medicine, right? I mean, that is
Right.
personalized care. That's functional medicine. Maybe I only get to play a small piece of that, right? I don't get to follow them, a ton further, but even finding my space to hold with them and to take that next step with them.
And interestingly enough, I would imagine, and I don't work in the ER. You said something a second ago that made me giggle, and that was how you enjoyed not knowing what's coming next in life generally. And I think that probably contributed to your enjoyment of the ER, which is why I
Mm,
would not enjoy the ER. It stresses
sure,
me out
sure. Yep.
thinking about, I like my
That's
little
fair.
clinic schedule of 30 patients. But
Yep,
I
yep.
would imagine as an ER physician, ER clinician, that would really help prevent burnout, is realizing that it's not just the acute patients that need your care, right? It's even the patients that come in with maybe a chronic thing that they're just frustrated with today. You can still provide them with that education. You can still serve them as a clinician, even if it's not something where you have to begin chest compressions immediately or starting them on all these acute medications. That's a really interesting point. And I love your idea about perspective too. You have to take off your ER glasses sometimes and see people just
Yeah.
as, as regular with your regular eyeballs, which is
Yep,
amazing.
exactly.
If for our non-clinicians who are listening to this, it's the hats. We always talk about the hats that we wear. It's like the brains we put in our head. Everything is intertwined at some point, but we definitely have different roles that we play, which you have a whole nother role, which is entrepreneurship in medicine, which of course we're going to actually, let's talk about that right now. When
Yeah, yeah,
did you realize, I mean, you work in the ER, this is an incredible career. When did you realize or start thinking about shifting and maybe moving into entrepreneurship, or even a new leadership role, really, which is
yeah,
that you
yeah,
have?
yeah. I think it's one of those things that, every entrepreneur who's done it and done it successfully, you'll hear him be like, "Oh, I think I was always an entrepreneur." It's because when you look back, it's easy to to pull that thread through.
Right.
For me, like I wouldn't say I was always an entrepreneur. Like I was not that kid who was like, putting up lemonade stands
Yeah.
and doing that. Like, I really, like I, I did my chores. I had jobs, but it was not really, again, for me, it goes back to, and again, this is in hindsight, right? I look to see where those threads were. Um, Leadership for me was always educating. I
Mm.
always have felt that the best leaders, or the leaders that I respected the most, knew how to educate really well and were passionate about that, right? Whatever it was. I'm someone who, like, you start talking to me about something random, like your marketing career, and I've got tons of questions. I want to know everything. And
Yes.
again, I think it makes me a good CEO because I'm interested in that. So it's really that learning and that education I think drew me to at some point entrepreneurship, in the sense that I've always been very curious. So as I
Mm.
was my path in the emergency department was interesting. So I worked I did my residency in the Detroit area, level 1 trauma center. I then went and worked at a local community hospital here in the Detroit area for 2 years as an attending. That contract got bought out by Team Health. So it got
Mm.
bought out by kind of corporate America, which is not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of people hated that right away. It didn't really bother me. It was, again, I was curious about it. I learned a lot about how billing works. I mean, doctors aren't dumb. Like, we know that healthcare is a business in the United States. So tell us how to help optimize that. We're happy to, as long as you let us take care of our patients. So I didn't really have an issue with that until it became an issue, right? All of a
Mm.
sudden, efficiency was being put probably before patient care in a lot of cases, and we didn't have quite the voice that we should have. So when it came to re-up the contract for a couple of years, I said, yeah, let me try something different. So I went to travel medicine.
Mhm.
So I was licensed I got licensed in a couple states, and I started doing travel medicine. Travel medicine now is a very like robust. I mean, this is like a career path that you can start deciding you're going to take early. When I first did travel medicine, it was the beginning of that. Like, we were like
Mm.
probably the first group of physicians like leaving, saying, "Hey, like, we're legitimate board certified emergency physicians, and we want to try travel medicine." Versus like, "Hey, I lost my license in California and I can only work now." And that was kind of the doctor persona. I think a lot of these. So I would go into these ERs and people would be like very appreciative that I actually knew what I was doing, which was fun. But what was cool about that is I got to learn that, like, the medicine didn't change, but
Mm.
how you delivered the medicine changed based on your
Mm.
resources, based on what they had or didn't have, who you had available to you. I worked in emergency departments where I had nurse practitioners that worked under me, and we had level 1, we had surgeons and we had vascular surgeons. And then I worked in emergency departments where I was the only doctor in the hospital, like in the
Wow.
whole hospital. There's one
Wow.
point I was working in a rural community up in upper peninsula of Michigan, where we had a trauma coming in, and a lady was like going to give birth upstairs. And they're like, Dr. Seitz, like, which one do you want? Because you can't do both. Um, but what was cool about that is that you like really learn to rely on your team, right? There's people ask me like, oh, Dr. Sykes, like, if you were out in the wilderness, like, what would you do? Like, CPR? I don't know. I don't have a CT scan, 5 nurses, and a bunch of other things. I can't really do my job, right? You have to admit that. So I think that gave me a real great appreciation of the team, of the health
Mm.
practitioners that I was working with. And then what started happening is that COVID happened, right? So all of a sudden I was like one
Mm.
of the only doctors working all the time during COVID, going everywhere to help. And that's when we saw this mass exodus of clinicians leaving kind of medicine. We saw advances in telemedicine and technology that allowed for us to do remote, Zoom type of visits. All of a sudden, this whole digital health thing blew up, and people started asking me, "Hey, Dr. Sykes, can you be my medical director for this thing? Could you help me? Could
Mm.
you oversee me here? Could you be my partner with this?" Nurse practitioners, PAs, nurses. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. This would be awesome, right? First, it was selfishly, I don't have to work as many shifts if you paid me to help with that. But then I realized there was no good resources for that either. There was no. This was a new way of doing medicine that we weren't prepared for.
Mhm.
And of course, I was one of the first physicians coming out during the time where, like, this focus on the physician shortage has been
Right.
huge. And you just realize, being a practitioner in that ecosystem, that, man, like, this system is broken, and we have to turn to another pool of providers. We have to. It's an inevitability. Unless we empower nurses, nurse practitioners, PAs to pick up the baton and see patients, patients just won't be seen. I can't see more patients in my ER.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
That kind of all culminated into, well, what if we built a platform to help non-physicians get the oversight that they need, have the compliance tools that they can use to make sure that they're protecting their license, but can deliver care within their scope of practice. And Guardian Medical Direction was born, and I took off, and I kept being curious and learning more. And found myself in a CEO seat one day. So that's kind of how that happened. But
It's incredible. It's incredible. So let's talk a little bit about medical oversight because that's something that you mentioned that I think people have heard, but they might not understand what that is. Why is it why is it such a barrier for us in healthcare right now? Well, first, what is it? And then why is it a
yeah.
barrier?
Yeah, so I mean, again, when you think about traditional medicine, when you're a nurse working in a hospital, you just naturally have physicians who are putting your orders in. You have this hierarchy of oversight um, that just kind of naturally happens.
Mhm.
That disappears when you go out into the outpatient world. So when we saw these advances in telemedicine, ability to do telemedicine stuff, with doctors not being very accessible, all of a sudden it became, okay, well, I'm a nurse. Maybe I want to start my own IV hydration clinic.
Mhm.
Maybe I want to do aesthetics, do some med spa stuff. Maybe I'm a nurse practitioner and I'm going to start my own telemedicine practice. But how do you do that without the right medical oversight in place that mimics that hierarchy in a hospital? And there really has not been a way to do it. So what happened was that practitioners would have to find a doctor like myself who is curious and somewhat familiar with these things and say, hey, can you help me figure out what forms I got to file with the state board? Can you help me figure out how to register this business even? Can I do this? Am I allowed to do this? The boards are very silent sometimes. They expect
Mhm.
us to interpret what the rules are and then just hold us accountable if we get it wrong. So it can be very scary. And I think especially in the booming digital health medical entrepreneurship world that kind of came out of COVID, unfortunately, but not surprisingly, like protecting the clinicians was kind of the last thing on the list, right? It's first
Yep.
like let's make money, then let's figure out how to show outcomes. Some businesses die right there, right? I'm making a lot of money with this new thing, but it doesn't actually help people in the end if you do the research. And then if you can get to the point where it actually does help people and I can prove that concept and I'm making money, then and only then do they worry about like, well, how do I make sure my physicians and my nurses and my nurse practitioners are satisfied?
Mm.
And a lot of people fail there too. I felt that it needed to be done differently, right? How do we protect the clinicians first? If you protect clinicians first and give them the tools, they will do what they do best, which is drive outcomes. And if you drive outcomes, you can make money in medicine. The problem is that the money came in the third step in my scenario, not the first. So it's not something that everybody follows.
Dang
But
it.
yeah, so what we do is that we have nurses, nurse practitioners, PAs that come to us and say, "Hey, I want to start my own medical business. How do I do that? How do I do it the right way where I protect my license?
Mm.
Who do I need to partner with? How do I structure this?" And we kind of help them from A to Z do that. So we have a platform that provides the other side of that equation, like physicians to do that oversight. We help them draft their protocols and procedures that qualify for the state board to approve so that they can legally do it. We help them structure the business. There's certain things that people don't realize were like certain states, a nurse can't own the practice of medicine,
Right.
only a physician can. So we'll help establish that relationship with the right contracts to, again, protect both sides of that. We always say, like, let us help you kind of structure it the right way, get it done in a way that you are safe and can go to sleep and I know your license is protected, then go scale your business, right? And if we do it that way, I think, and it's still a model that like people are uncomfortable with sometimes. The
Right.
boards are still trying to figure out how do we do this. Is where we really as a company have partnered with these boards to say, hey, let us help you show you how to do it the right way so that these clinicians can do it. But there is no other choice. And I think that's what
Mm-mm.
we're coming to find year over year, that we have to adopt and change and figure out how to do this because otherwise, we just have to admit that patients won't have access, which I don't think is an option anybody wants.
No, it's not an option. You're absolutely right. And gosh, that was incredible. Thank you for explaining all of that. And that is,
Yeah.
there's three different points that I want to touch on first. And the first one is, I know we mentioned we're going to come back to the fact that you're licensed in all 50 states, which
Sure. Yeah.
first of all, is that unusual? That's unusual, right? Not every physician is licensed in all 50 states.
No, that is unusual. So that's one of the actually kind of the cool things that again that came out of COVID and telemedicine. It's called the IMLCC. IMLCC. It's a way that I, as a doctor, can get like one license and then quickly get licensed in a bunch of other states.
Hmm.
That didn't exist before. Like that's kind of an
Mm-mm.
unheard of thing, even when I was first coming up in telemedicine and travel medicine was how do you get licensed in multiple spots that you have the ability to help more. Now it's much more doable. We're seeing nurse compact licenses in the same way, right?
Mhm.
But the problem with that is that the way I practice, what I'm allowed to do through the state of Ohio's Board of Medicine is not exactly the same as the state of Michigan. And that's something that people don't really understand.
Right.
Your scope of
Right.
practice is different per state. Um, so again, that's another thing that these entrepreneurs have to navigate as they're starting their medical businesses, especially if you're going to like open up multiple locations or do telemedicine across state lines. Different compliance components are different in every state. It's very interesting.
Well, thank you for explaining that. And that was actually the question I was going to ask you is that number one, I would imagine being licensed in all 50 states makes you beautifully positioned to counsel people, of course, medical
Yeah.
professionals in all 50 states. But it's also a really great point to make for the student who might, or even the patient who might not realize that just because I'm board certified and licensed in Florida doesn't mean that while I'm on vacation in California, I could just work for a couple of days. It's just that's not how medicine is currently positioned, which is interesting to see. And I think something to keep our eye on, and maybe you can speak to this too, over the next maybe decade in medicine is really seeing those lines blurred, especially as we run into more issues with um, a limited number of clinicians, specifically medical doctors. That'll be quite interesting. So thank you. Thank you for explaining that so well. That is
Yeah,
such
yeah,
an
yeah.
important point that we don't bring up very often. And then something else that I wanted to mention is, this entrepreneurship in medicine. I think a lot of people think about it as doctors, MDs, or DOs. What I'm hearing you say is that entrepreneurship is not limited to medical doctors. It is for nurses, for PAs, for NPs. This is true? This is news?
Yeah, yeah. Our whole business, so we don't support physician practices. We support nurse-run businesses and PAs
Amazing.
as well. So these are nurses, nurse practitioners, RNs, nurse practitioners, PAs, even just medical entrepreneurs who are going to
Mhm.
hire those types of people to deliver care, who have a good business idea on how to deliver care in a unique way. They come to us and we help them build it the right way. Now you need physician oversight in there. That's why our model exists. You
Mhm.
need to structure the business in the correct way. You have to have the right policies, procedures, protocols. There are certain things you can do that if you hire these kind of practitioners, there are certain things you can't. And that might be different in what state you're in. I mean, to your point, it's something that people don't realize is that if I'm a doctor on vacation in Florida and I respond to a medical emergency, I'm responding as a layperson. I don't
Right.
have a license there to actually practice. You have to be very careful. Versus if I'm at, the store and someone goes down, you hear these stories of, especially ER doctors, we like to be, I don't know, we like to get on the news apparently, but we're like, someone, we're working out of the gym and someone goes down and like and again, whoever this guy is, right? You've heard this story, but whoever this guy who's like carrying his medical bag and like
Right. Who
intubates
is
the
that?
guy on scene. Like, first of all, dude, what? I mean, come on, you were looking for that to happen. Whatever, that's fine. You deal with your own ego at home, I guess. But anyway, they'll intubate the guy, they'll get him and they'll save his life. That's awesome
Yeah.
if they're licensed in that state. If you were
Right.
like on vacation and did that as an ER doctor, that you were licensed, like you get sued pretty severely. Like you don't have, and people don't know that. They think once a
Right.
doctor, always a doctor, which is true. But I'm certified, I'm licensed in a specific state. So yeah, I got licensed in all 50 states. It took a long time. It cost a lot of money. But like I said, I can kind of do what I want a little bit in that way, but that's not the norm, and a lot of people don't realize that. But yeah, going back to your initial question, yes, I mean, so this is all nurse entrepreneurship, PA entrepreneurship. Like and this is again, this is what I think is an inevitability in healthcare.
Mhm.
Yeah, my emergency department used to be everyone's access point.
Mhm.
Now people are accessing medicine at their gym, at their pharmacy, at their medical spa. I think that's awesome. I think a lot of people are afraid of that. And I think the regulatory environment is like, oh my gosh, how do we do that? How do we make sure? Because you hear all the bad stories. But to me, like I built the business to help support that the right way. Because to me, that's very exciting. I really love patients to be able to get care wherever makes the most sense for them. I think we'll see people take care of themselves better that way. I think we will be able to take that burden off of the current healthcare system if we can do it right.
I want to repeat this because I think that this is such a novel idea to hear a medical doctor saying, and that is get your medical care from what's accessible to you and
Yeah.
what feels comfortable to you, but at the same time coming from someone who's founded Guardian Medical Direction, find out what is backing them, find out
Yeah.
where they're getting their opinions from, where they're getting their advice from. You still have to do your research, like you still have to know about this person or this company. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where this is so incredible that you have offered an amazing resource to these clinicians, these nurses, PAs, and Ps who really desperately want to offer care, but maybe need some support there, right?
yeah. I think clinicians too, I mean, we talk a lot about burnout. Um, I think clinicians are burnt out not because they're seeing too many patients. I really don't. I don't think I wasn't burnt out in the emergency department because of all the patients I was seeing.
Mm,
I got burnt out in the emergency department because I couldn't deliver care the way I knew I wanted to deliver care.
right.
Right. So like that's the other thing that I think that I hope that we empower at Guardian is that again, like if you got a business idea and like you got a way you want to deliver care to your group of patients or your community, man, I want to help you do that. Because like one, you're going to be able to give so much more and you're not going to burn out because you get to do it your way. Again, let's just make sure it's in the confines of the right compliance safety network to do it, but that's it's less hard than people realize. It's like you just have to understand it. Um, but yeah, I think that really bullish on all the new advances in medicine. I
Mhm.
think there's doctors out there that are getting worried. I feel the opposite way. I really think we're entering a time where, you know, for physicians who are worried about, losing some of the control, I think that we as doctors finally get back to being true scientists and pioneers and thought leaders. We can empower more people to actually deliver care in the way that best suits them and best suits their community. We talk about personalized care all the time, right?
Mhm.
So why would we not want to help people figure out what, again, to your point, what works best for them, right?
Right. Absolutely. And here's a question. We've been dancing around this question the whole time, and I'm just going to ask it directly. Where do you see healthcare heading in the next, well, pick a number, 10, 20 years? What is it going to look like? How is it going to look different than what we are poorly sometimes doing right
Sure.
now?
So I think, I mean, we gotta start talking about AI. We talk about the future of healthcare here. I think
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
AI is going to do a really good job of taking over all the algorithm based. It's going to
Mhm.
have to be done with the right oversight in place, right? We can't just rely on, just the technology, right? There needs to be the checks and balances, which I think
Right.
we as physicians are going to continue to move into more oversight roles. We're going to continue to move into more kind of guidance. They say 30% of physicians today have a non-traditional role. It's awesome. And that's
Wow.
because a lot of them are entering into chief medical officer, medical director. Like we kind of have to elevate up and empower the other practitioners to do some of that work. I think AI starts to really help take care of a lot of the easy, quick things. And to me, that's not scary. That doesn't take jobs away. That actually allows us as clinicians to get back to being healers.
Mhm.
I don't have to be the guy checking all the boxes, making sure the
Mhm.
stroke protocol. I can be the guy who sits with you, who holds your hand and says, "Man, I get why this isn't exactly right for you. Let's work together to figure out what that is." That to me is super exciting. I think we talk about the science of medicine. The science of medicine is those algorithms, right? It's the ACLS protocol. It's your stroke protocols. It's make sure you give this antibiotic before this antibiotic, and that science changes based on research. And the art of medicine to me is the environments that we create for healing. And
Mm.
that can be an environment that I create with you right here, where we're just speaking on a phone and I sit with you as a healer and like make that space for you. It can be the environment I create in my medical spa, right? When you come in and you feel a certain way when you get that experience with like I think the experiences, that's the art of medicine to me. And I think that's where we're going to be able to as clinicians get back to a lot of that. And I think we're going to see massive leaps in people's health because of that though, not because the science is going to get better or faster or quicker. Like the strep throat's going to be strep throat's going to be strep throat. AI can handle that. But we're
Right.
going to start to be able to create environments again for healing. And that was where we're going to see this kind of revolution of health advancements. Um, that's my prediction. That's my
I
hope.
love it. What a fantastic idea too would be to, put the healer back in the healing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
I love that. And it does feel more it feels more collaborative with the patient as well. And I think that we have so often just spoken to the patient instead of spoken with the patient. And I think that's also part of the art of medicine, right? Oh my gosh, incredible. Okay, last question as we wrap up. I'm taking up so much of your time.
Oh, you're good.
Let's talk to our student right now. How should students begin thinking about the business side of medicine? And should they be thinking about the business side of medicine before they even go into it, right? They're thinking right now, well, Ash, I'm not even not even there yet.
Yeah.
Is this a good time to start considering it in the current climate?
I think so. Obviously, I think yes, right? I think that every clinician should be thinking. But when I say business, I guess I go back to entrepreneurship, and we throw
Mhm,
that term around very loosely nowadays. Everyone's an
mhm.
entrepreneur, right? You sell pottery out of your garage, you're an entrepreneur. That's fine. The term entrepreneur, though, like really came from this, like creating something from nothing, though. Like an entrepreneur back in the day was someone who like created something that didn't exist. I think clinicians, are in a field where we get to create something from nothing more often than any other field I know, right?
Mhm,
And that's because it's interpersonal and it's interrelational, right? So
mhm.
I guess when I say yes, I think what I'm saying is I'm going to encourage whether you're pre-med or pre-nursing or in these different environments is to just don't get concerned that you're not going to be able to do it your way. And obviously, like I said, your way needs to drive value, but it will because you wouldn't be in it if you weren't caring, you didn't want to care for people if that wasn't just a natural thing. So just stay curious around like, hey, I really like that path over there, but I would want to do it a little different. Or man, it'd be really cool if you did like those are all options. And like when I went through medical school and I went through like people didn't tell you that, right?
Right,
You could be an ER
right.
doctor, you could be an OBGYN, you can be a family medicine doctor, and that's it. You better pick the right one because heaven forbid, it's really hard to switch. You can't do another residency. Like that was kind of the what we were taught. I have not found that to be true at all.
Yeah.
I think what one of the best things about the career that I chose is that I get to make it up I can make up every day a different way of doing what I'm trained to do and find new passion or new excitement or just get creative anytime. And if I want to go sit and just see patients all day in telemedicine, I can pick up the phone. I can get that job tomorrow as well. I mean, it is such a blessing to have the skill set to really just they say the true marker of success is waking up and getting to choose your own problems.
Mhm.
I get to choose my own problems, right? What I want to struggle with is what I get to struggle with. That is the most freeing thing. I think clinicians are very uniquely positioned for that in what we do, and especially with what's coming in the future. Like I would just encourage people like just keep being curious about it. Don't get overwhelmed by it. Don't worry about it. Like it's all on the table for you. That's I think.
Absolutely incredible. Dr. Seitz, thank you so much. Listen, if you guys are interested in learning more about Guardian Medical Direction, check it out. It's guardianmedicaldirection.com. Dr. Seitz, it has been absolutely incredible. I
Well,
am
thank you.
so full of hope, really, about medicine, about the trajectory of medicine, and very, very grateful for what you have offered.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.